Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on September 11th, Health Department Director Lori Kelly said that emergency visits for COVID-19 cases have remained steady.
According to a regional representative of CVS Minute Clinic locations now have the 2025-2026 COVID-19 vaccine available for those 12 and older. So individuals can inquire about this in person, or you can schedule an appointment online. The health department still has free COVID tests available. Individuals can walk in Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to receive free tests. And our public health clinic has vaccines available. You can call 812-353-3244 for an appointment.
Next, Highway Director Lisa Ridge elaborated on her department's request to accept a quote in order to fix cracked road ceiling in Monroe County.
We've received two by highway personnel. The lowest quote was received from RLH Seal Coating. The department would like to accept the quote for crack sealing in 2025.
The commissioners approved the resolution unanimously. Later in the meeting, Commissioners Administrator Angela Purdy presented a resolution for a $6 million general obligation bond. Purdy shared what the funds would be used for.
This is a resolution for a proposal of a $6 million bond, and these projects are specifically for, so this bond is to cover the following projects, and their county public improvement needs. Fees associated with the issuance of the bond, design plans for the improvements at the Monroe County Airport, remodeling of the showers building specifically for our voter registration and early voting, and improvements within our Youth Services Bureau, our nature preserve, the courthouse ground, and emergency management has a need for additional sirens, and we're looking at cameras and other non-lethal force equipment for the sheriff. There's some additional need for some furniture, tools, and equipment by our aviation department. So these are all related to improvements, and the incidental expenses in connection with these improvements are part of this proposed bond. The approval is for up to $6 million. That gives the council the ability to determine an actual rate, an amount for this particular bond.
Purdy said this large bond would be spread out over 6 years, covering all the items she listed.
This bond is due to recent changes in Indiana code, must be longer than 5 years. And so this would be a $6 million bond over 6 years. What we have done in the past has been a $3.1 million bond each year. And that gets paid off that year, the following year. So this kind of drags it out. Sounds worse when you hear the word 6 versus 3.1, but the effect to our community is spread over a longer period of time, and it's smaller.
The commissioners approved the resolution, which will now be sent to the county council for a final vote. Later in the meeting, Commissioner Thomas said that there will be a celebration for Lake Monroe on September 14th. The festivities will include live music, food, and a cash bar in celebration of the lake's 60th anniversary.
And I know there's a Lake Monroe Day celebration at the Fields on Sunday, and I don't remember what time, 5 p.m. Sunday at the Fields Clubhouse.
The commissioners will meet again on September 25th. The Bloomington City Council had a deliberation meeting with members of the public to learn more about the housing needs of city residents. Before beginning the meeting, Council President Hopi Stosberg shared how they define neighborhoods. Residents were broken up into smaller groups to discuss amongst themselves their housing wants and needs. After they all had the opportunity to discuss, representatives from each group shared the general consensus of their housing priorities and concerns. Councilmember Sydney Zulik shared insight gleaned from her breakout group.
I was in group 6, best group ever. We had realtors, we had builders, we had homeowners, we had renters, we had Monroe County residents, Bloomington residents, so we got some good stuff. Everyone had some pretty similar ideals for what they were looking for when they approached housing. So there were some people whose needs were met because they were getting them, and some people whose needs were not met because they weren't, and that is all about housing affordability, walkability, ability to live near loved ones, ability to own a home, or a lot of what we encountered was there was a lot of people who enjoy the Bryant Park neighborhood and the different neighborhoods near campus where they can walk to work, and unfortunately, the affordable housing is not necessarily near there, especially if you're looking to buy. And so that was a lot of what we talked about in terms of what we look for in housing, and then we ran up against a couple issues in terms of ADUs and just ability to build ADUs and then sell them once they're built due to lot sizes, which is a very complicated issue that I am probably not the best person to explain to you, but we will get there someday. And essentially, we talked a lot about how we are missing the middle ground housing and that there are a lot of different people who are looking for around the $300,000 range, maybe older folks who are looking to size down or younger folks who are looking to buy their first home. A lot of them are looking for the exact same kind of type of housing, and that is what limits it as well. So a lot of it is density.
City zoning planner David Brentez said his group consisted of a majority of homeowners and a few renters. He explained the concerns expressed in his group, including public safety, transportation, and a desire to live within the city.
So we had a variety of different takes on housing issues in our group. We did have majority homeowners as well as a couple of renters, but it was majority homeowners. And then some of them expressed that they felt a little bit trapped. You know, maybe they wanted to get away from crime in their neighborhood, or they wanted to be in a larger house, or have more access to sidewalks, transit, more restaurants or amenities like close by. So some of that public infrastructure is what they were looking for. And then we also noted that just amongst everyone in the group, there was a strong desire to live within the city. So they did like being in the city and wanted to stay there. But when we were talking about moving around to different parts of the city, price was an issue of finding the right housing type that they wanted at that particular time. So we discussed kind of a lack of options or lack of stepping stones to the goal of home ownership, if that's your goal, or to own a different type of home. Maybe that's a single family home in a neighborhood that has more influence and is able to get those amenities that they want, and the maintenance of their infrastructure that they would desire at their neighborhood's standards.
Councilmember Isak Asari said that he was in a mixed group of renters and homeowners. He said both demographics expressed concern about the affordability of home ownership.
Our group included renters and homeowners, and the message was clear amongst us. I think that Bloomington faces lots of pressures on housing, straining families, students, neighborhoods. Affordability was at the heart of it, of the things that we discussed. Single-family homes now being out of reach for many, medium home prices far outpacing income growth, property taxes doubling since COVID, et cetera. One of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about are neighborhood concerns, how they're sort of adding to the pressures, lots of investor-owned rentals, changing to the character of blocks. We also talked a little bit, that it came up questions, sort of these overlapping questions about encampments and safety concerns, concerns around city projects, et cetera. So we had a broad, wide-ranging conversation around sort of our interests and needs in housing. We offered a wide range of solutions and ideas for the future In terms of housing supply and diversity, people talked about starter homes, diversity of houses, condominiums, duplexes, family-friendly rentals, not just student housing, interest a little bit in density in particular places, though not interest in taller buildings. So some tension there. Policy tools, we talked about things like land trust, land banks, rental caps, limits on how many homes can be owned by investors, parking permitting questions, particularly for houses without driveways near campus. I think there was more on the side of people concerned about us building houses without parking minimums, accessible loans to new people, and even rent control, even though that's illegal. Form-based zoning was discussed to shape the look and feel of neighborhoods, loosening restrictions to allow density where it makes sense.
Director of Housing and Neighborhood Development Ann Killian Hansen shared that residents in her group would like the opportunity to downsize.
As far as if housing was meeting the need, most owners did say that their housing was meeting their needs, especially if there were smaller houses. If there were larger houses, they felt like maybe it was not meeting their needs, or they would like the opportunity to downsize, but they were stuck by golden handcuffs right now with low interest rates.
Killian Hansen added that homeowners who said their housing was meeting their needs had purchased their homes many years ago when housing prices and interest rates were much lower.
And I would also say that as far as meeting needs, one of the themes that I saw was that when people were happy with the housing type that they're in right now, they also were able to purchase them for $60,000 or $75,000 many years ago and adapt the house to be what they want it to be now currently. That's not an option.
A second housing-focused deliberation meeting will be held on November 12th. The Bloomington Commission on Sustainability met on September 9th. Commission member Tara Dunderdale proposed an amendment to a resolution for the Bloomington Urban Forestry Plan. The amendment would change the language to align with the city's existing policy.
I pulled up the Bloomington Urban Forestry Plan, which the amendment that I'm going to propose, we had a few different amendments that it turns out are all covered in what Bloomington's Urban Forestry Plan says the goal of their urban forestry department is. So my recommendation for an amendment to this is to say, whereas the city of Bloomington says this already, and just use the text of their documentation, because they address all the things that we talked about, like human health, equity, healthier neighborhoods, things like that. So it's already part of city policy that they maintain the urban canopy to those benefits, so that to minimize the number of amendments, but also to point out that this is already language that the city has adopted, and this is already an area of intended investment from the city.
Dunderdale also explained how preventative tree maintenance reduces the cost of reactive tree maintenance, like trees falling across roads and on buildings. Commission member Jamie Scholl asked whether the recent stronger storms that have been hitting Bloomington have led to an increase in costs to the city. Dunderdale responded.
It seems that Tornado Alley has moved, and we're now in it. With these massive storms, were you able to find any information of how much cost the city had laid out for some of these massive storms?
Those instances?
Yes, because the cost of hiring contractors, like you said, is going to be a lot more than that. So I wondered if there was a cost comparison of how that has increased, which would then offset, make it a convincing argument for this amount to be approved.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. We're not actually proposing a specific dollar amount so much as we're proposing that they effectively, the dollar amount has not changed, and so they've just continued, the city has continued to approve roughly the same amount, but the sort of like value of that, and so we're not proposing a specific dollar amount so much as like higher than now.
Do the math.
Yeah. And also that it should, continuing to think about, I think we're sort of sidelong saying what Dave was saying earlier, which is that you can't, like, if you cut today because it's going to save you some money today, you may be paying more later, and that the cost could be much greater. Yeah. Like the sort of like implications could be much worse.
The commission voted in favor of amending the resolution. The Bloomington Board of Public Works met on Tuesday, September 9th. Assistant Director for the Arts, Holly Warren, from the Bloomington Department of Economic and Sustainable Development, requested approval for the annual Wrapped in Love public art installation. The program wraps trees in handmade sweaters with art, symbols, and/or language knitted into them. Warren explained that speech is exempt from the artwork because of the right-of-way policy.
Starting in 2023, the city began a partnership with Wrapped in Love because the city's policies aligned with the perspective of Middle Way House that folks deserve resources when they're in a crisis. And when that took effect, basically what that means is that all of the art and the globally recognized symbols on those sweaters, as well as any language either on the sweaters or on the placards, become government speech. And when that happens, that means that that speech is actually exempt from our art in the right-of-way policy. So that means that any globally recognized symbols or language that are represented as part of this installation are okay.
The art will be installed starting September 15th and remain on the trees through January 15th, 2026. The request was approved unanimously by the board. Transportation Demand Manager Jeff Jackson from the Economic and Sustainable Development Department requested the board's approval to renew the license for the micromobility company Bird. Board President Kyla Cox-Deckard asked if there were any plans or concerns about ridership versus number of vehicles. Jackson shared information from the company on the number of trips per vehicle.
There's just a little over 58,000 trips on e-scooters over the last year, and just over 5,000 e-bike trips, so about 9% are e-bike trips.
According to Jackson, Bird currently has 500 units in the city of Bloomington and plans on adding another 200 by October 1st. Public Works Director Adam Wason added that the board also has access to the ridership data as it comes in, and that they could make adjustments to the number of vehicles hosted by the city as needed. Vice President Elizabeth Karen inquired about vehicles being left on sidewalks. Wason said that there are fewer instances overall since the installation of e-vehicle parking corrals. He also explained that the city is continuing to enforce parking for e-vehicles that are parked incorrectly.
Over 350 fines were issued since the beginning of the year this year. You know, when staff sees improperly parked scooters, they issue the fines. The fines have been collected. They're tending to happen outside of the core of the downtown because of the corrals being successful. So, you know, my hope always was, as we got the corrals built, we could focus more on the neighborhoods where we hear from the residents that are trying to walk on the sidewalks that we're encountering the things. You know, I know there are still violations occurring. When we get word of them, we go and respond. But I couldn't tell you exactly if the number of complaints has gone up or down, but we could pull a report on that for sure.
Wason said that it has been nice to have one handler for all of the e-bikes and scooters, and that there have been fewer issues since reducing the number of vendors.
I'm excited now that we have one vendor, we have one point of contact, we have, when we had the 3 and the 4 vendors, when we were first responding to this, it was very much that disruptive technology approach to everything. I think we've got a better handle on it. It's not perfect. They still are out in public, in traffic, all the things, but I think it's gotten better overall, and I think with having the one vendor, we'll still be able to even fine-tune it, make it better. They're talking about putting in new corrals that they're going to be required to put in, and thinking about locations. So hopefully, we continue to lessen those number of instances where they're causing an issue, whether accessibility or otherwise.
President Kyla Cox-Deckard asked if the city felt satisfied with safety information from BIRD, especially for people new to the city and to using the scooters. Jackson said that BIRD has done a good job of responding to safety concerns.
BIRD's been very responsive. The safety requirements are outlined in the package. They show up to events when requested, and other times that they schedule themselves. They give away free helmets and do demo rides or do training for the e-bikes and e-scooters. So the other part of having one vendor is that they've been very responsive, and both with responding to your reports and meeting their safety requirements and obligations.
The request to renew BIRD's license was approved. The Ellettsville Town Council met on September 8th and approved a loan from the People's State Bank to fix a leak in the fire department's roof. The roof replacement will cost just over $116,000. Chief Kevin Patton spoke to the board about the loan.
We did get with People's State Bank, and they drew up the paperwork. We're doing a 3-year note. I do not have any intentions of it lasting that long. So basically, we just need approval to go forward with this. It's what we discussed at the last meeting.
The loan will be repaid through the Cumulative Building and Equipment Fund, meaning it won't cause an increase in taxes. The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be held on September 22nd. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will